Hello, ladies and gentlemen, 'tis I, Michael A. Graham, aka the Multi-Voice. I have many voices, but one opinion. And today I don't have a franchise to review about or anything science fiction involved. I mean, there is something very science fiction, but it's not a TV show I'm going to be talking about. And and there is I repeat, one DC franchise I want to talk about. Now, if any of you remembered what I mentioned before, like I talked about, I remember when I talked about the James Gunn and the and his DC universe. Well, there's one character I did mention, and it is Lobo, and this is what I'm going to be talking about. So, how I'm going to start with Lobo. First up, let's get to the let's wind the clock back a bit to the 90s. Now, I remember, because I was born in 1985, I remember how the 90s were. And of course, they always kept creating superheroes who are violent and has an attitude and always real badass types back in the 90s. And a lot of companies always had badass superheroes. Take, like, for example, Marvel had Cable, a time traveling soldier who have seen the future and only time travels to destroy somebody who would create a horrible disaster in the future. Azrael, one of Batman's companions, with his method, he's more like he thinks killing people who sin is better than just beating them up and throwing them in jail. Heck, he even took Batman's place when Bane broke his back. And his method was too extreme that Batman finally got better and got his title back as Batman. Dark Horse, they had Hellboy. Now, one thing I know about Hellboy is a demon from hell who all of a sudden was raised by a religious soldier who taught him about being superstitious and also try to do good, even though in his future he would bring hell on earth in the future. But he's trying his best not to be like that. Image Comics, they had Spawn. See, that reminds me, I should review Spawn one of these days. But Spawn is Al Simmons, who was a skilled assassin until he was betrayed by his boss. And during the killings, during his years in the military, working as an assassin, he went straight down to hell, and a demon named Malbergia gave him a chance by becoming his general in his army of Spawn and bring hell on Earth in order to get his wife back. But when he came back, he discovered that his wife is married to his best friend, and everybody thought he was dead. He was dead for a long, long time. He took he took the suit, became Spawn, but now he becomes a vigilante and battling against serial killers, vampires, and demons from hell. So he's pretty much battling between heaven and hell. And of course, there was a British company who goes by the name of Armageddon AD. 2000 AD. I think it's called 2000 AD. Where they created Judge Dredd, a future where crime and corruption's been going on in the city. So now their government created a group of police officers who are judge, jury, and execution, and therefore created Judge. A little known fact, did you know that RoboCop was based by Judge Dredd? I'm not kidding, look it up. And of course, everybody knows Marvel's number one favorite, Wolverine, a mutant with healing powers and animal instincts. So, DC decided to make a parody of those badass superheroes. And therefore, they took the idea of Wolverine and therefore created Lobo. But his legacy didn't start there. His first appearance was from Mega Man Comics back in 1983. And since this character was very interesting, that's when they decided to have his own comic, and they did like a mini series, 3-issue special, a 4-issue mini series of a comic book miniseries of Lobo. And for those of you who don't know who Lobo is, here's your origin. Lobo is from the planet called Zarnia. And when his mother gave birth to Lobo, she drove the midwife completely insane. And of course, according to their Zarnian language, the name Lobo means he who devoured your entrails and thoroughly enjoys it. And of course, Zarnia was a very peaceful planet. So that's why their planet decided to give birth of Lobo to even things out. And one thing about Lobo, he has healing factor just like Wolverine. And he also has super strength. And, there are some people do say that he breaks the fourth wall sometimes. And the only weakness is another Zarnian. So pretty much, in other planets, he is unstoppable. But if another Zarnian tries to stop him, it will be his weakness. So one thing he did, he created a hybrid of scorpions and hornets because he knew his Zarnian people are allergic to them. So he created them and released them all over his home planet and wiped his entire species to extinction so he can be the only one. And he calls himself the main man. So he'll be more like, the name's Lobo, the main man, intergalactic bounty hunter. Now, he's not all that evil. I mean, besides of some of his dark things he done, like wiping out his own entire species, and he only used it as a side project and gave himself an A. He also loves dolphins, and he found a planet full of space dolphins, and he has a soft spot about them, so therefore he created his own church of space dolphins and make sure they never get hurt. So he has a thing for dolphins. And he also created his own space hog, a hovering advanced motorcycle where he can fly anywhere into space. Although that kind of makes me wonder, how can he breathe out in space? I mean, heck, he even put boombox on it and start yelling, "Born to be wild!" And of course, here's another thing about him that is kind of shocking. Heaven and hell cannot take him. Because to hell, he's too good to go to hell, and too bad to go to heaven. So therefore, his soul cannot be taken. And, and even the Easter Bunny hired him to kill Santa Claus. Bear in mind, he is a parody. I mean, they made him a parody that he was so good, they decided to make him part of the DC universe. Imagine that. And if you want to have the whole story of Lobo, you should go on Amazon or eBay or any of the other shopping network and order yourself an omnibus of Lobo. And here's a little known fact: there is a certain comic book creator who was a die-hard fan of Lobo. And that comic book creator is the godfather of Marvel himself, Stan Lee. That's right, true believers. My number one favorite Marvel character, I wouldn't say that he's a superhero, but he's a favorite Marvel character, and he's my number one favorite, is, of course, Lobo. That's right, true believers. And hey, while you're getting yourself a Lobo Omnibus comic, why don't you get the Omnibus of, What If I Created the DC Universe? That's right. I made a deal with DC, and I made my own version of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, and also Shazam. Excelsior! That's Stan Lee for you. And yes, he really did do a his own comic book series of his own DC universe. Now, Lobo pretty much thrived throughout the 90s and 2000s until when DC decided to do a reboot. That's when they created the New 52 Lobo. And they just butchered how Lobo's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a biker, alien-like bounty hunter. And this Lobo, he's a bounty hunter, but he kind of acts a bit like Edward Collins from Twilight. And you know how I feel about Twilight. And this is how I feel about New 52. I hate New 52. I am not a big fan of New 52. I love DC, but I'm not a big fan of New 52. I think New 52 just butchered exactly what the DC superhero is supposed to be. I prefer the pre-crisis universe and the Golden Age universe of the DC superheroes, but not the New 52. And thank God that they made DC Rebirth. It pretty much helped ease the pain a bit, where they're sort of combining the New 52 and the pre-crisis together. And since all the fans hated the New 52 Lobo, they decided to bring back the old Lobo. And to make things more interesting, Lobo has a daughter, and her name is Xiomara Yozaz. Xiomara Yozaz, also known as Crush. Now, at first, Lobo, trying to be the last of his kind, almost tried to. He found his daughter and almost tried to kill her, but one thing about her is that not only that she's Zarnian, she's also part Earth, part human. So she's part Earthling, part Zarnian. And she goes on her own. She doesn't. She kind of follows her daddy's footsteps as bounty hunter, but she likes to, handle things her own way and not do exactly what her daddy tells her. Well, talking about a daughter who's a rebel without a cause. And believe it or not, in 1996, they were planning to do a Lobo video game. And it was for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. But sadly, it got canceled. Maybe because of problems with the design or something like that. But at least Lobo showed up in the that fighting DC game, Injustice. And also Infinite Crisis. But people were trying to make a movie about Lobo and even a TV series about him. But only the internet got him started. Because now this is available on YouTube, so you can just easily watch it if you like. They made a webisode of Lobo back in the year 2000. And I watched it myself. It is pretty entertaining. And there was a live action fan-made Lobo called Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special in 2002. And that one is a Christmas special because it's based on one of the comics where where the Easter Bunny hired him to find and kill Santa Claus. And then they made another fan film. People on YouTube made another fan film, which is more like a crossover. Ash versus Lobo and the DC Dead in 2016. And it was way before they did Deceased, a zombified version of the DC Universe. Where this time Ash William from Evil Dead meets Lobo. Which I gotta say, that is groovy. And of course, they finally gave Lobo a live action appearance in the series Krypton. Now, some of you are going to be asking me, why am I talking about Lobo? Well, you guys are going to be in for a treat. You see, I want to explain about Lobo to you guys in case some of you don't even know who Lobo is, because I'm working on my next Doctor Who episode, and it's all finished. And the episode is called Doctor Who in Lobo's Price on Lobo's Price and Doctor's Head. Well, you know what I mean. That's right. I've done an audio fan crossover of my Doctor crossing over with Lobo. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly what it's all about. In this one, the Daleks, they hired Lobo to kill my Doctor. They hired him to kill my Doctor until my Doctor convinced Lobo that he's being duped. Because one thing I know about the Daleks, they don't use currencies. They don't value money. All they do is conquer and destroy. They don't use anything as currencies. So, Lobo gets upset. So, my Doctor hires Lobo to get back at the Daleks. And it's going to pick up after that crossover of My Doctor Meets Superman left off, where my Doctor asks Supergirl on a date. So this is going to pick up after where it left off, where my Doctor asks Supergirl out on a date by giving her a tour of the TARDIS. So stay tuned, because the audio I made is going to come out next week. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, and one thing I always remember, Lobo, I guess in the comics they wouldn't allow him to cuss, so he never says the F word, but he always say frag all the time. And when he is insulting somebody, he took two words that can insult both men and women. And the word he created is called bastage. And for those of you who don't know what it means, it's a combined word of bastard and bitch. So every time when he's insulting both men and women, he just call him bastage. And that's Lobo for you. So, those of you who enjoy my talk about Lobo, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next Doctor Who audio. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy my doctor dealing with Lobo and the Daleks. So, you better enjoy the audio, you frightened bastards, or I'll be coming after you. I'm the multi-voice reviewer. I remember it so I can jog your memory.